They told me I was in a coma for 11 days. 11 days of silence, of nothingness, of drifting in a place where time didn't matter, where pain didn't exist, where I didn't exist. When I finally opened my eyes, the world was a blur. The sterile white of the hospital ceiling stung my retinas, and the overwhelming beeping of machines felt like thunder in my ears. I was confused, weak, disoriented, but what I remember most is the face I saw first. Not my husband, not my mother, not even my sister. It was him, my father-in-law, Mr. An. He was sitting there, beside my bed, holding my hand like he'd been doing it for years. His eyes, they weren't filled with concern like a normal parent-in-law. No, they were soft, almost possessive. I blinked, struggled to speak. He smiled. "You're safe now, sweet girl. I've been here the whole time." I don't know why, but that made my stomach twist. Where was my husband? Why wasn't he the one holding my hand? Mr. N stroked my arm gently and added, "He couldn't bear to see you like this." But I stayed. I never left. At the time, I was too weak to argue, too vulnerable to question. I just nodded and tried to breathe. But the unease, it didn't go away. I was kept for observation for another 3 days. My vitals were stable, but my memory, not so much. They said I fainted in the kitchen. Hit my head, lost consciousness. Simple accident, they said. But I didn't remember falling. I didn't remember cooking. In fact, I didn't remember anything from the week before. Everything was a black hole. When I was discharged and taken home, things were different. My husband, Nam, was cold, distant. He barely looked me in the eye. When I asked if he was okay, he simply said, "You've been through a lot. Just rest." But there was no warmth in his voice. At night, I'd find him sleeping on the couch. When I pressed him for answers, he shrugged and muttered something about needing space. And Mr. N, he was always there, hovering, watching, offering to make my tea, rubbing my shoulders, calling me dear a little too often. One morning, I woke up to find him in the kitchen, cooking breakfast in just his undershirt. When I walked in, he smiled and said, "Your favorite. I remember you always liked eggs sunny side up." But I had never told him that. That was something I only ever shared with Nam. That day, I started to feel truly afraid. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. My body felt fun, my emotions unstable. I cried for no reason. I couldn't sleep. I started feeling nausea, strong, overwhelming waves every morning. At first, I thought it was stress, trauma from the coma, until I missed my period. Twice, I bought a test behind everyone's back. Locked myself in the bathroom, hands shaking, 2 lines, positive, pregnant. But how? My last memory of intimacy with Nam was nearly a month before the accident, and we hadn't touched since I woke up. The math didn't add up. Unless something happened while I was unconscious. My hands went cold. I remembered the way Mr. N held my hand in the hospital. The way he whispered, "You're mine now." I stayed. A chill spread through my spine like poison. I knew I had to find out the truth. But how do you accuse your own father-in-law of something so vile? How do you confront your husband when he won't even look at you? How do you fight back when you don't even remember what happened? But something inside me screamed louder than my fear. I had to know, even if it destroyed everything. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was the test. Those 2 pink lines felt like a death sentence. Not because I didn't want a child, but because I didn't know whose child it was. And worse, I had a terrible suspicion. That same night, I waited for the house to go quiet. Nam had already shut himself in his office. Mr. N was in his room, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I moved silently down the hallway, toward the bedroom where I had collapsed weeks ago, the very room where my coma had begun. And something told me That's where I would find the answer. The room hadn't been used since the accident. Dust clung to the curtains. The bed still had the same sheets, the same indentation where I had fallen. I scanned the room carefully. Then I noticed something strange about the nightstand drawer. It wouldn't close all the way. I pulled it open. Inside was a small black device I didn't recognize at first. A USB stick. No label, no cover, just cold, black plastic. My heart stopped. I tucked it into my pocket and crept back to my room, locked the door, plugged it into my laptop. There were 3 folders, each labeled by date. One of them, the night of my coma. My breath caught in my throat as I clicked it open. At first, nothing. Just a dark, grainy image of the room from above. I realized it was footage from a security camera, mounted in the ceiling fan. A hidden camera. I watched myself enter the room. I was holding my head, clearly dizzy, stumbling slightly. Then I collapsed, and 10 minutes later, he came in. Mr. Ann. At first, he looked surprised, panicked. He knelt beside me, touched my forehead, checked my pulse, but he didn't call for help. He just stared, and then he touched my face, stroked my hair, kissed my forehead, then my cheek, then lower. I slammed the laptop shut, nearly vomiting. I couldn't breathe. He had found me unconscious, and instead of calling an ambulance, he waited, watched, touched me, violated me. Tears blurred my vision as I fell to the floor. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. And in that moment, everything made sense. The way Nam avoided me, the way Mr. N kept calling me mine. He had been watching me long before the coma, and when the opportunity came, he took it. The next morning, I confronted Nam. He was standing in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was just another day. I set the laptop down in front of him and opened the folder. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just watched the footage, and when it was over, he whispered. I knew something was wrong that night. But he told me he found you like that he called the ambulance, that he saved you. I believed him. I slapped the table. Why didn't you ever ask? Why didn't you question anything? He looked at me with hollow eyes. Because I didn't want to know the truth. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I had ever felt. Then, he said something that broke me even more. He's done this before. I froze. Nam stared into his cup. When I was a kid, I saw him in my cousin's room once. Late at night, he said she was just sick, that he was checking on her. She never spoke about it. And we never asked. My blood went cold. This wasn't a what-time violation. This was a pattern, a predator living in my house. And now, I was carrying his child. I couldn't stay silent. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, hovering over me, whispering my name, touching me when I was unconscious, powerless, a prisoner in my own body. By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to be another silent woman, hiding in shame, bearing a monster's child without ever speaking up. I wasn't going to be one more story people whispered about but never dared to believe. I was going to confront him. Nam offered to do it for me. You shouldn't have to face him alone, he said, guilt soaking every word. But I needed to. I needed to look that man in the eye. I needed to hear whatever lie he had waiting on his tongue, then destroy it. Mr. N was in the garden, watering the small orchid plants his late wife had once adored. He always looked so harmless out there, like a quiet, gentle grandfather. A disguise, a mask. I stood behind him for a moment, just watching, and then I said, quietly but clearly, I know what you did. He froze, the watering can tilted, water pouring into the soil like blood. He didn't turn round. I saw the video, I said. That's when he slowly turned to face me. No panic, no shock, just a smile. Soft, dim, sinister. I was hoping you wouldn't remember, he said, almost wistfully. But I guess a part of you always would. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stepped forward. You touched me when I was helpless. You violated me. He set the gun down and took a deep breath, like he was about to explain something trivial. Like forgetting to take out the trash. You don't understand. You were glowing that night. So vulnerable. So open. It wasn't wrong. You needed someone. I was there. You needed me. My hands clenched into fists. I had never felt rage like that in my life. It burned through my skin, ignited every nerve in my body. You're sick, I spat. He chuckled. No, I'm honest. Something your husband never was. He abandoned you. I said, I gave you life. He looked down at my stomach. I took a step back, instinctively covering myself. That's when Nam appeared behind me, his face pale, lips tight. Don't say another word. He growled at his father, Mister, and smiled again. Wider this time. Oh, now you play the hero. After ignoring every red flag I threw at you since you were a boy, Nam stepped forward, fist raised. But I stopped him. No, I said, he's not worth it. Let the police handle this. Because I had already called them. Earlier that morning, I sent the footage to my lawyer. Then I sent it to reporters. Then I sent it to the police. There would be no escaping this. We waited in silence. Mr. and didn't flinch when the police arrived. Didn't fight when they cuffed him. Didn't apologize. He just looked at me one last time and said, he'll never love you like I did. Those words still haunt me. The days after were chaos. News spread fast, especially in our neighborhood, where everyone knew Mr. and as the sweet, grieving widow who tended flowers and donated to church. The disbelief turned into disgust. The pity turned into silence. Nobody knew what to say to me. Nobody knew what to say to Nam. We were broken in different ways, but we stood beside each other. At least, for a while. Until the doctor's appointment. Until I saw the first ultrasound. Until I heard the heartbeat. Nam couldn't look at the screen. He walked out of the room and never came back. He left that night. Left me in the apartment we once called home. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. I sat in the clinic's parking lot for nearly 2 hours that day. The image of the ultrasound still burned in my mind. That flickering blur on the screen. That faint, steady heartbeat like a distant drum calling out from inside me. He was gone. Nam. My husband. My partner. The one person I thought would stay. Who promised me forever. He couldn't even face the sound of life growing inside me. I didn't blame him, but I didn't forgive him either. What I carried in my body wasn't just tissue, or cells, or a tragic consequence. It was a choice, a burden, a being, and even though I had every reason to walk away from it, I didn't. I went home, alone. I didn't cry that night. I just lay in bed, hand resting on my stomach, listening to the silence. Not the kind that haunts, the kind that prepares. The next few months were the hardest I've ever lived through. People stared when I walked into stores. Whispers followed me like smoke. She's the one. The story about her father-in-law. Disgusting. But they didn't know my story. They didn't know that every doctor's appointment was a war between anger and grace. That every morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and wondered, will I love this child? Or will I always see him in his eyes? I started therapy again. A real one this time. Not the kind that tells you to move on, but the kind that sits with you in the dark, helps you build a home there, then slowly guides you back out. One night, during a group session, a woman, older, fragile, said something that stuck with me. We don't choose what breaks us, but we do choose what we build from the pieces. That night, I made another decision. I was going to keep my baby, but I was going to reclaim the story. He wouldn't be the child of a monster. He would be mine, born from pain, but raised with purpose. So I named him Hope. It wasn't his legal name, just mine for now, but it meant something. He kicked for the first time at 20 for weeks, and when I felt it, that tiny flutter, I cried for the first time in months. Not out of fear, but out of something that felt like healing. Hope is 9 months old now. He laughs in his sleep. He curls his tiny fingers round mine like I'm the only thing he needs in this world. And maybe, for now, I don't know if I'll ever tell him the full story. I don't know what he'll think when he's older and starts asking about his father. But I do know this. He will never feel ashamed. He will never feel unwanted. Because his story doesn't start with violation. It starts with a woman who chose to stand up. Who chose light over shame. Who chose him. If you're still watching, maybe you're someone who's been through something unthinkable too. Maybe you're carrying a secret. Oh wait, and I want you to know, you're not alone. You are not broken. And no one has the right to define your story but you. Not the man who hurt you, not the people who abandoned you, not the voices who whisper behind your back. You choose you, even when it hurts, even when the silence is deafening. Because one day, the silence breaks, and you hear a heartbeat, and it reminds you, you're still alive.